Hello and welcome to another BDEX Fireside Chat. Today we're going to be talking with Fariba Zamanian, VP of Data and Monetization at TiVo. We're going to be talking a little bit about the control of television's transformation with the personalization of linear TV data. And so jumping right in, first want to welcome you, Fariba. Thank you again for our second Fireside Chat. And maybe you can give just a brief introduction for those that missed the first one.
Great. Thanks, David. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be on our second Fireside Chat together to talk about these incredibly relevant topics today, especially as we head into and actually just began the fall TV season and the close of yet another incredible year in advertising and media. My name is Fariba Zamanian, and I'm Vice President of Data and Monetization Sales at TiVo. And specifically what that is I manage the sale of our television viewership data, which is a sample of data collected from a myriad of MVPDs that span across the US, enabling us to capture passively the collection of tune-in to programming information, as well as tune in during commercial breaks to define those that are exposed and non-exposed to national and local advertising. And the ability, given the charge that we're all in this current environment, to leverage data and the ability to segment data into audiences that can be leveraged for the targeted placement of advertising and optimization of planning, not just in the current, ecosystem of linear, but expanding that into digital, which is really the big trends that we're seeing today.
You and I did a quick little talk at the Synopsis Big TV conference on this topic, essentially the extension of linear TV and personalization through various different touch points. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity and give listeners and viewers the opportunity to kind of let us dive into that and learn a little bit more about what we're doing on that side and what that means. And so maybe you can kind of shed some light on that. I mean, I'm busy on the data side of the whole thing, and you have much more knowledge on the TV side of it. So I'd love to have you share some of your thoughts around that.
The best way to really kind of coin what's going on is just an incredible fragmentation that's happening across a variety of tiers when it comes to not just the ability to access video, but also how it's being consumed and the relevant trends that are occurring today. We've done a survey for the last 10 years at TiVo, which is called the Video Trends Report. And we recently did an update based on second quarter surveying across the US of nearly 5,000 respondents, and have been trending just consumers and what it is that they're accessing and how they're accessing it. And fragmentation is really reaching its peak in an incredible pivotal point, because we've seen in this latest update that on average, consumers have subscribed to 9 different services, or nearly 9 different services, to get to video. And at the heart of that is pay TV, or as we've traditionally called it, linear television, which continues to capture the majority of viewership across the US, where on average, just over 4 hours a day are being spent consuming video through the traditional cable access point. But as we've seen, and we all can attest to, we've got subscriptions now to those services that are not ad supported, as we call SVOD, and a growing percentage. And really what's changing the game when it comes to further fragmentation on how to access video is AVOD, or advertising supported video on demand. And so this increased access points with nearly 8, which is a 30% increase above Q4 and more than double what we've seen in the last 4 to 5 years, is a real opportunity now for advertisers and the entire advertising ecosystem of evolving ways to be able to reach their targeted audiences, which extend way beyond just traditional demographics and geographics, which were the way we kind of have been historically and traditionally building media plans and executing against them. So what we've seen is this, fragmentation, not just in the different types of services, but in the different ways they can get to that video. So the glass screen is preferred. So our main television sets, multiple TVs throughout our homes, in our bedroom, in common living area spaces. But there's also the ability now with the digitization of this linear content to access video through our phones, our tablets, our PCs. And that's really where the personalization element comes into play, is the ability to transcend or be able to measure and target not just the programming or the opportunity to see ad, but also where they're able to see it, not just from the perspective of the service type, pay TV or AVOD services, but then drilling down even further into what type of device are they actually using to get to that content. So that really opens up, or has opened up, an incredible opportunity for advertisers, for touch points to deliver their commercial messages in a targeted scale, both linear and now digital. But the challenge becomes, how do I synthesize that opportunity into a media plan that enables me to achieve incrementality and avoid duplication as much as I can? And so that's where we're at a real interesting inflection point in the advertising and media ecosystem, where we have tremendous opportunity that is now at our disposal to harness. And through companies such as BDEX, enables us to take what's at the center, which is linear, which is where the majority of eyeballs, the traditional systems, media planning and optimization and measurement techniques have really evolved from, and extend that to a personal level that can get all the way through that sort of funnel that I laid out, from not just the service type, but also through to the actual device that they're going to be viewing that content. So it's incredibly exciting, lots of change happening, more to come. But for us at TiVo, having the data at the center has enabled us to really not only leverage the insights we're capturing passively, but also validate that with some of the additional work we're doing, such as the Video Trends Report, and in working with partners such as BDEX to do so.
And I read that report, I said to myself, 9 subscriptions. I'm like, well, wait a second. Actually, I think about it, I have my TiVo stream, thanks to you. And I have my Xfinity service, because that's, where I'm in my region, that's the service linear TV service we have. But then I started listing out, well, I have Prime Video, and I have, Hulu, and I have Apple TV. And it's like, the more I add to it, I'm like, well, wait a second. Yeah, I'm falling in that category. We all have so many different ways that we watch video these days. It's amazing. But yes, it's 100% true. Everybody still has kind of the linear TV as their core. And so I think it's interesting. One of the other things that, we talked about again at the big TV conference was what we're doing together to use linear TV data and isolate exposed or not exposed people to advertising campaigns, and how we're able to build audiences off of that for targeting across platforms. And
we talk about the capitalization from an advertiser perspective of delivering their commercial message. Efficiency is still being leveraged through linear, but certainly knowing that audience is downsizing, how do we capitalize on those extensions that are coming through services such as AVOD? And the buzzword of the day is CTV, or connected TV, and enabling advertisers to get their message out through this immersion of different touch points. And so what we've devised is the ability to leverage linear and that viewership and technology to take what is at a household level or at a set-top box or a TV set, and there are on average 2 per household for those that are specifically pay TV subscribers and from whom we capture data, is to take an audience that, let's say, are sports enthusiasts, and that advertiser wants to extend their promotional messages beyond the linear, but still be able to measure, so target and measure that very same audience across, the various mediums that we described. So the TiVo approach in working with BDEX is isolating audiences that are exposed to a commercial message and sequentially retargeting them on connected TV. And so we've got household level data. So how do we then take what's household and personalize it all the way through to the various digital devices? And that's where partners such as BDEX enable us to effectively take that audience. So we want to identify them, and we can infuse with a variety of first and third party data sets as well. We want to extend the reach of a campaign that gets to those points, and that's where BDEX comes in, where through your identity graph and AI and machine learning, we're then able to identify and attach all the various digital access points, so mobile ad IDs, IP addresses, hashed emails, and then scale that audience to one that represents the universe, because again, there's so much fragmentation in terms of data sources. There's no one source where you can get the scale and the reach. So for the advertiser, it requires working with several different provider types like ourselves in order to get the scale to reach that universe, and then enable 2 different paths to get or execute against that audience. One can be done in leveraging the programmatic, basically pipelines, establishing something in a purely digital approach. And the other is through direct ad buys. So doing a direct CTV buy can also be enabled with providers that have premium inventory available to then target and place against that specific audience. So which TiVo, working with BDEX, has the opportunity to do both. So it really opens up 2 channels of bringing linear data, extending that audience for an advertiser who can then isolate and identify those that are exposed or not exposed to the linear campaign, and then be able to target, retarget in these 2 fashions in a fairly seamless approach that enables precision as well as the capability for really advanced measurement techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think, TiVo has a really interesting use case that they did internally, as well as some brands that we've worked with directly, right? A few DTC brands as examples. So tell us a little bit about that. I think it's really compelling, the TiVo Stream 4K use case, and how we did just that with that. So maybe you can share a little more information about that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was really exciting. And given the interest and the commitment to this initiative, we effectively, in my old days, my research days, I would say research on research. So let's take this to the test, put it to the test by investing against one of our own products to develop proof points against the model. And so just to recap, the process in what we're calling sequential targeted linear retargeting or linear suppression, there's a host of different names on it. But effectively, the process it goes through is that you want to identify and isolate the audience. You want to append the demographics or any other characteristics, lifestyle, behavioral elements to truly define that audience. Then it's a matter of scaling, validating, attaching and associating all those touch points, digital touch points, and then activating that campaign in market. So in the Stream 4K example, we did all of that, but leveraged it with our own, or executed against our own premium inventory, CTV inventory. So in step one, we identified, we have a Stream 4K, which is our media player, which we launched last year. We've decided that we wanted to drive, our objective was to drive incremental sales. We've been running a linear TV campaign and wanted to test the waters and reach extension in the CTV environment in endemic programming to what we had done similar in linear. So we approached it from the perspective of targeting sports enthusiasts. The linear and the use case was targeted around a golf tournament. And so we wanted to isolate the message and target it for those that were not exposed to the linear campaign, retarget those same non-exposed, but who are also sports enthusiasts that are tuned in or watching CTV programming that's endemic to sports viewers. So in that exercise, we were able to quantify by applying pixels on our online web activity where a TiVo stream could be purchased. And by tying the IP address for impression delivery to those where sales were made, we were able to quantify a conversion assessment in its simplest form. And we're able to determine in this 4-week window that we actually had seen a 25 or realized a 25% increase in sales among those who had received the CTV impression delivery versus those who did not. So it was a great proof point that enabled us then to go to market with the capability that we leverage now through BDEX of bringing it to fruition. And as you mentioned, we're working with some direct-to-consumer brands who are leveraging this technique for linear suppression to extend the reach in a digital environment, in this case, CTV. So we're super excited about the initial outcome, and I'm sure these types of initiatives are underway across an array of advertiser types and verticals, each having slight differences in terms of their KPIs. Ours were sales. Some other KPIs may just be web visitation. It may be inquiries, certain page visits on their web pages. But either the case, applying a pixel to those locations to do the very same thing are certainly feasible. And that was a great example of our direct buy, which includes inventory that has reach against 30 million plus households and premium inventory, competitive separation, ad tagging capable, and so forth. So we were very excited to roll that out to market and working with you on several other brands that hopefully will see the same outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you mentioned something there about the importance of validation and verification of data. And I think that's really important for us to talk about, because I know that everybody is using machine learning or AI as a sort of marketing term these days. But I think it's important to understand what goes on sort of behind the scenes. Me being more on the technical data side, I think that sometimes we get a little offended when everybody uses the term machine language so loosely. And a lot of times it isn't what it's all cracked out to be, because they're not validating the data. And the most important thing is exactly what you said there, is that anybody can create a machine learning sort of algorithm to build out an audience. But if the data that you're using to build that algorithm, to essentially build that audience and build that model, is not validated, then the outcome is going to suffer without a doubt. And so one of the things that our team really looks at as being of the utmost importance is the data quality that goes into the model and how that model is built, and the sort of the different data segments that are used to build that model. Without that, you just get a bunch of garbage out. And so, right, garbage in, garbage out. And so if that's going to be the case, then you're just building an audience that's really no better than anything else. And I think that the example that you gave with the TiVo stream is a perfect example to show the effectiveness of using quality data to do this, because then the output performs. And so for us, And for me, being more on the technical side, it's pretty exciting to see that actually work on the actual advertising.
Absolutely. The real world, once you put it into the real world and it, takes the training wheels off, the best way to evaluate success is really what's at the bottom line, and depending on how that bottom line is defined. And it's exactly right in that there are lots of services that are providing this abused terminology of AI. It is a very sophisticated process that, using the deterministic data, such as what we bring to the table on the linear TV side, is really critical. So using model data as an input into what goes into the effectively defining relationships and isolating what at the end is defined as the touch point for that target consumer is ultimately going to come down to the validity, the quality of the data in, the validity and precision that has been validated inside of those machine learning techniques. So yeah, incredibly important to the process.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think that we really have gotten to the point where our companies together have developed this process to take that seed data from the linear TV, use the machine learning in a way that's really effective and validated, build out these audiences, and then handle the distribution so that we can distribute and activate these audiences pretty much everywhere in the ad tech ecosystem for brands. And I think that that's more and more what we're seeing is the need for brands to or the want for them to want to sort of leverage custom audiences. And the audiences that are sitting on the shelf out there just don't work anymore. There's lots of reasons, whether it be data quality or just the fact that everybody else is using the same data. But now for us to be able to help them leverage the linear TV data and build these custom audiences based on exposure or non-exposure is pretty powerful. And I think that that example is a great example. I think we also have one in the travel industry that maybe you want to share a little information about as well, because I think that's a really good example.
Yeah, I think that probably what it has the greatest opportunity from a scaling perspective and opportunity really for anybody to participate is in the programmatic vehicle. So the ability to create a custom audience and working with us directly, so managed service approach to define an audience that, for example, is one that is exposed to competitive advertising. So competitive conquesting is still an incredibly relevant use case in the programmatic space. So isolating and identifying households that are exposed to competitive products and then being able to retarget them in on a programmatic scale to drive the brand that you support to be able to deliver your competitive message against that audience is an incredibly powerful opportunity to get even more laser focused in defining an audience than we've ever been able to do before. So where we started with these creation of audiences that were inferred, they were not deterministic based, didn't get down to the granularity of what I just described, we've really seen evolve over the last couple of years, and really, quite honestly, in the last few months, where now the sophistication of the ad tech community is really advanced, and the clients they support are demanding it. And the good thing is that we have the ability to deliver. And in this particular case on the travel side, we're able to isolate and identify based on exposure, not just exposure, but also to competitive advertising versus their own advertising, and then push through BDEX and our partnership to their DSPs or integrated platforms in order to execute on a programmatic scale. And that is one where it's really like working with the client on a direct ad buy but still bringing the efficiency and the utility that the programmatic space brings on a digital scale. So, so it's really evolved that we now have this, at the center of it again is the data, the ability to get incredibly precise and refined in how we want to define the audience, and then leverage two different ways or two different techniques, depending on the client objective, to be able to deliver that message and measure against it, its performance.